What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. I have a little bit of a confession to make, which is that over the course of the last couple of years, I have gotten extremely burnt out on indie games. So many indie games, they just feel like they're trying to be a copycat with a lower budget of Mario or Donkey Kong. But it's for this reason that I've really come to appreciate the Bloodstained franchise. In case you didn't realize, Konami has basically said that they're not going to be making any more big budget games. And so the people who made Castlevania so incredibly famous in the first place decided to go solo and start making their own kind of sequels. These are very much the spiritual successor to Castlevania, but in pretty much every way, they're also just such a nice refinement. This game really rocks, and I was a big fan of the other Bloodstained games, so today I'm going to do a brutally honest review. I really want to rip into the things in this game that are absolutely perfect, and the couple things that kind of drag the experience down. So just in case you didn't play the first Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, this is a 2D action-adventure game, but the major gimmick of it that makes it extremely unique is that at all times you have 4 separate heroes that you could just switch between to try and use their particular talents to try and fight off the forces of the undead. Now in this game, they've decided to do a full-blown sequel, but all the heroes are new. Well, the original swordsman Zangetsu has returned, but his new crew is totally great. Each of them is very original. We have Miriam the priest, who's able to do a special high jump and has this long-ranged spear for poking targets at maximum distance. You have Robert the gunman, who has pretty much infinite range and can blast people all the way across the screen, but his old man legs kinda suck, so he kinda just hops when you need to try and do those tactical jumps. And then there's this new character, which is very bizarre, which is a tiny corgi that's driving a magical mech. Now this cast of characters is obviously ridiculous, but I kind of like the fact that each of them has their own strengths and weaknesses. While I was playing this, even when I did just get really used to like the attack combos of Zangetsu, I still wanted to swap. I still like that there were different situations where a particular hero would be better suited to this style of play. Now the main thing that makes this very much like Castlevania is that there is a lot of magic. These enemies are going to be breathing fire or trying to curse the ground and all sorts of stuff like that, so you need to be constantly trying to switch out your own sets of magic. Now here is absolutely the reason I think that this sequel is better than the original. So when you're switching through the characters, each of them has their own styles of spells. Like Miriam can do like a spear throw and she can revive people or even heal the other party members. Robert the gunman gets different flavors of attacks that let him do like some super long range super attacks, and those are all nice, but I like the fact that there is an extra element to this, which is that since whenever you hit one of these lamps it's going to drop some magic, you need to try and think who deserves this most, who needs their own special upgraded thing. And I like that it kind of made it where I was constantly trying to switch out my different heroes on the fly to make sure that everybody was experimenting, everybody was trying to see which combination of abilities would be the most deadly. Now, here's the thing, this game can be incredibly punishing. There's an easy mode that gives you like infinite lives and there's no knockback, so it's really simple, but if you want to play this on the normal difficulty called Veteran, here's where things become incredibly punishing and you're going to be using the maximum skills of all 4 of your characters. So when you're playing this on Veteran, you're going to find yourself getting knocked off stages constantly. The hardest thing about this game isn't just trying to learn the enemies, it's the fact that if you get hit and fall into any one of these gaps, it is instant death. Now this doesn't send you back to the last checkpoint, it just sends you to the beginning of that screen as long as you have a hero alive, which means that you become very precautious. You're constantly trying to switch through each of your characters, keeping them healed up, making sure that you're not accidentally weakening somebody by playing them too long, and because of this, it definitely makes it where you are going to be extra delicate on each and every one of these jumps, especially when it comes to co-op. This is the major new addition to the game, and something that didn't exist in the other Bloodstains, but it's definitely good for the most part, but there is a glitch to co-op that I want to talk about here in a second. At any time during the adventure, it's possible for a second player to just hop into the game. When they press start, they can select any of the characters that you're not currently playing. So it means that if you want to try and vary your different skills, if you want to try and complement each other's abilities, like having Miriam run around and be the healer to try and keep off like Zangetsu to make sure that he's as maximum powered up with his sword attacks as possible, there is a lot of interesting dynamics to the co-op, but the biggest thing is that it's just more fun. I mean, everything is more exciting if you have somebody there by your side to scream at you every time you fall into a pit. It makes the bosses easier because honestly you're doing double the attacks every single second. But the thing is that there's definitely this underlying exploit to co-op that I don't think that the developers happened to notice during their testing. But at any time, if you choose to do so, you can press the minus button, like if you're playing Nintendo Switch, it's like select. The second character will just become like a disembodied floating blob. They'll float next to your character. And this basically means that if you want, you can do some crazy stuff like when enemies show up, both of you can spring out, you're attacking, you're defending, you're trying to dodge, and then as soon as it comes to a platforming section, you can just switch to the Corgi robot who can fly and straight up soar across these gaps. And so this just makes it where the other player can simply just go on autopilot practically, make themselves that little bubble, and float along automatically. You can skip all the toughest jumps in the entire game in co-op in such a weirdly easy fashion. This can also lead to some weird stuff where at times when I was playing this with my roommate, this is Comic Drake, he's like a YouTuber, does all sorts of like cool comic book videos. Well, when we were beating this co-op, there were times when I was just flying and skipping so many parts of the level, he's just sitting there looking at like dating apps and stuff, whereas I'm out there actually trying to save the day. And it seems weird because since he could just hop out whenever we're like on a boss fight that we need to burn down or something, it felt like it was a little bit unbalanced. I don't want to say that it's a flaw, but it definitely seems like a glitch. I don't think that there should be this ability to just essentially teleport across the screen. I mean, we were even doing stuff where if we missed a jump, you could press select and automatically magnetize to your partners. You could actually try a jump again and again and again and just pull yourself out of the hole, and there was basically no repercussions. Despite this very bizarre glitch, co-op is definitely a giant benefit, and certainly my very favorite part of the game, which is saying something because a lot of this game is just very well constructed. There's so many times when I was playing this where it genuinely felt like we were just back in the day experiencing the perfect time of Castlevania. It's so nice to be exploring castles, going through stages, trying to conquer a crazy volcano and stuff. Almost all of this is just so well polished and certainly just enjoyable in a way that feels more than just retro, more than just indie. This feels like the true game that it needs to be. Now, the last thing I do kind of want to rip into, though, is that at times, sections of this feel overly difficult. Now, I normally try not to complain about difficulty because how hard something is can be very subjective, but I'm somebody that beat the original Bloodstained games. I've beaten every Castlevania. There are certain jumps in this game that with certain characters are almost impossible. And it's weird to me that this game, if you have certain heroes alive, it's easy mode. But if you lose one of your favorite characters, then you're basically screwed. I found myself at times when I was trying to play this solo, dumping continues into particularly tough jumps and dying again and again and again, and it wasn't even because I'm a bad player, it's just because certain people are just not as well built. There's so much timing, there's so much precision, there's so much like little technical details at times into these jumps that make them not pleasurable. I love the boss fights. I could do these again and again. It's so nice to see like a centaur train or a giant lava dragon. So much of this stuff is so well tailored to what the fans didn't know they wanted. It's just that a few of these jumps certainly seem like they could be a pixel or two more forgiving. Okay, so we have heard a lot of good and a little bit of bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2 a 9 out of 10. This franchise or game series or whatever you want to call it, it's so cool that this actually exists, because when you consider it, Castlevania is supposed to be dead. It rose to power, it got incredibly famous, and then it completely exploded. And yet, instead of just catastrophically exploding like every other series has, it managed to live on. I'm still so happy that this exists, and honestly, I'm already excited for Curse of the Moon 3. This game is so freaking good, and I'm just hungry for more of it. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.